Okay, in this week's discussion topic, we will be going over, is classic WoW hype just nostalgia based? And the answer to this question is no, it's not. But that is a very popular narrative going around right now, so I think this would be a good topic to discuss. Now, for some context, what does this topic even mean? Well, there's a lot of narrative going around on different websites and YouTube videos about how, classic WoW, it's very much hyped right now. It's doing very well on Twitch. Lots of people are watching it. Lots of people are talking about it. And because of that, lots of people are discrediting it. I don't think that's a word. Are trying to discredit it by saying it's just a nostalgia hype. And when people actually play the game, they won't like it and quit immediately. Which is not true. I don't think that's true for a couple of reasons. But I'm surprised that's the narrative people are going with. Because, before all of this recent wave of hype, it used to be just like people were excited to see it. And there was just lots of talk about it, to sometimes a fanatical degree, about how great it is. And now that it's starting to become a little bit more mainstream, because the hype is starting to get more popular, now people are starting to have more of a negative narrative focus to it. And, I wonder why that is. And that's a good thing to talk about. So, the reason I think it's not just nostalgia hype is because, this was 15 years ago, and I doubt there's too many people who played WoW in that time period who are the same person they were back then, or could even play it now, or lots of them are children, or there's a whole new wave of people who grew up playing video games who didn't play vanilla WoW, and they're excited for it. And, I didn't start playing WoW until Wrath of the Lich King, and I had a great time with it. And I'm looking forward to Classic WoW, and not because, I played Classic WoW, there's no nostalgia behind it. I honestly hate nostalgia, and I, ignore, I go out of my way to not indulge in nostalgia at all. That being said, I tried out a version of Classic WoW on something called an illegal server. I don't know if you guys know about them or not, but there exists these servers that are illegal that you can play on that try to recreate the Classic WoW experience. So I decided to give it a try. I've made all these videos on Classic WoW, and I never actually played it. I only played Wrath of the Lich King, and I only joined halfway through Wrath. The first full expansion I played from start to finish was Cataclysm. I only played the second half of Wrath. So I basically completely missed all of this stuff. I mean, I did do my original leveling through the old world, so I still do remember a lot of that stuff. But from the late Wrath, when everything was fixed version of the old world, which I think is probably the best version of the old world. All the bugs are fixed, they have lots of quality of life improvements. Anyways, long-winded thing, I tried a classic server, and I made a rogue. I forget why I did it. I think I just needed... it doesn't matter why I did it. I'm just remembering. And so I decided to have 2 days for a weekend, and I was just going to try playing, vanilla WoW, see how far I could get on one of these, servers. And going through the first leveling zone, I was super surprised to see how much my abilities missed. Everything was a miss or a parry or a block, a glancing blow, or, block. Oh, I already said block, didn't I? I was surprised to see everything could block. Half of my abilities would miss in some way. And I was like, wow, that is very annoying, because sometimes abilities need to hit in order to do stuff. If your gouge misses, the thing that makes them, sapped for 4 seconds, basically, it doesn't do that. So, you really need some of your CZ abilities to hit. And it made it a lot harder, and you also started off with 1 dagger instead of 2. And rogues are balanced around dual wielding, so only having 1 weapon for the first 10 levels was excruciatingly slow. It was so bad. And after the first day of playing it for a couple hours, I logged off, and I was like, wow, that was terrible. That was so bad. Well, I guess I'm not doing that again. And then an hour later, I had an idea. I was like, what if I changed this thing around? What if I did this? And I logged back on and I tried it again. And I got to like a higher level and I was having a little bit of fun. I was like, okay, that was better than my first experience. It's not that great though. I probably won't play it again though. It was a nice little experiment. And then the next day I played it all day. Like, for some reason, I just went back to it. Like, I don't know why. I just had an itch to go back to playing it, even though I had a terrible time on my first day. Because everything was so hard. And I think that's what made it fun, was how difficult it was. It was really difficult, like, surprisingly so. And then everything had super long cast times to it. And while I was playing it, I was like, I gotta write this shit down. This will make a good video. And so I did make a video out of it. The video is called, like, the differences in leveling from Vanilla WoW to Live or something. I don't remember. The video did really well. It has, like, 500,000 views right now. And I made that video because of, like, the 2 weekends I played. So I played the first weekend on my Rogue, and I got him to, like, level 12 or something. I got out of the starting zone. And then the second weekend, I tried playing a Hunter. And that was a lot of fun. Hunter is way better. Not really. The first 10 levels on a Hunter are also really hard because you don't get your pet until level 10. And your pet is a central part of playing a Hunter in Vanilla WoW. Like, I already know so much about Vanilla WoW because of all the videos I've made about it. Like, I have so many videos about Vanilla WoW, so I have, like, researched it, from, like, an outside perspective. And then when you actually play it for yourself, it's, I'm just, like, noticing a bunch of things like, hey, I made a video about this, or stuff like that, but there's still a whole bunch of other things, like, I never knew about, because no one talks about them. Like, no one talks about how you can't see the vendor price of items unless you're at a vendor, or how you missed half of your abilities at early levels, or how, rogues don't start off with 2 weapons, or how prevalent stutter shot kiting is on a Hunter until you get a pet. Or how strong pets are, or how you have to, I don't know, it's just a lot of little things. And that's why I made a video about all those little things I noticed. And it was a lot of fun. And this is from someone who didn't enjoy their first time playing it, and doesn't have nostalgia about it. And because of those 2 weekends of playing it, I didn't play it again because I'm busy. I can't, I don't have time to do that unless it's for a video. Because, surprisingly, even though I make videos about WoW, very little of that time is actually spent playing the game. Most of it's spent writing scripts and editing. But for someone who, has no nostalgia for it, and had never played it before, when I did play it, I had a lot of fun. And this kind of brings me into the discussion topic. Like, Vanilla WoW, Classic WoW, is fun in its own way. And not because of nostalgia. Like, nostalgia has nothing to do with it. I don't have nostalgia for the game, and I had loads of fun playing it. Because it's fun to level in Vanilla WoW. Like, the journey itself is fun, and it's not really about the end game. But then when you get to the end game, you find out, there's actually stuff to do here as well. You have the raids and dungeons to do. There's much more endgame content in Live WoW. I think that's kind of the difference. BFA has tons of endgame content, and the game is designed around endgame content. So leveling is basically about getting to endgame as fast as possible. And Vanilla WoW, the game was more about leveling content, and it has endgame content as well. But nowhere near as much as, modern WoW, because it's had like 15 years to expand upon it. And even then, the leveling process is just way better, I think. And I think the leveling process is fun enough on its own, and I think that will be enough to really carry the game until everyone catches up. But even then, they're going to have, release content. They're going to have update patch. Well, what are they called? Batches, where they release new things like battlegrounds and new raids and stuff. That should help with the end game thing, because everyone already knows what to expect. But also, there's the whole leveling part itself, which is loads of fun. And I think that's going to be more than enough to make the game a success. And I don't think nostalgia has anything to do with it, like, at all. So it's baffling to see so many people argue that it's just nostalgia, and that just leads me to believe that these people just don't know what they're talking about, or, they themselves know someone who's nostalgic about it, they themselves are nostalgic about it, or they've just heard people parrot, the nostalgia argument and think that's, correct, because it sounds correct. Like, it would have sounded correct to me as well if I hadn't actually tried it for myself. I would have also thought, like, oh, these people, they're just nostalgic for it, but Vanilla WoW sucked. It was just grindy, everything took forever. Like, why would you want to go back and do that when you can just go in BFA and, be bored for the leveling process? But then once you hit max level, then you can start having fun. But in Vanilla WoW, leveling is fun, which is crazy to think about because leveling sucks so hard in BFA. Like, I would really love it if they took some hints from the classic WoW, if it's successful, which I think it probably will be, and then incorporate that into modern WoW to make it more fun again. That would be great. But then again, like, why is classic WoW leveling fun, in my opinion? And I think it has to do with probably, like, why people enjoy things like Dark Souls, really hard games that have been popular recently. And that's because most games are made to be easy, because that has the widest appeal. Like, if you want to make a ton of money selling a game, you want to appeal to a very general demographic, the masses. And the masses are generally not very good at video games. Like, have you ever been into an LFR before? Have you ever seen, healers out DPSing the DPS? Those are the masses that people, balance their games around. They try to make it as easy as possible because the average player isn't very good. And because of that, over time, this has worked. The reason Vanilla WoW was a success in the beginning was because it was easier than all the other MMOs on the market. Making the games easier helped. It made the games more mass appeal. It allowed them to sell more. And then over time, they just made them easier and easier to a point where now it's a novelty to have a hard game. And I think that's the perfect market for classic WoW to come out. We're currently in an age where a game being hard is described as being like Dark Souls. And even classic WoW, when it first came out, was easy compared to other MMOs. If it came out now, it would probably be, I want to say harder, but I'll be honest, my MMO knowledge is squarely just WoW and what I've seen from, like, Lazy Peon's videos, because he does, like, server impressions of new MMOs that come out. And from what I've seen on those videos, and also this other guy, I watch two YouTubers who talk about other MMOs. Lazy Peon, when he talks about his first impressions, and another guy who talks about MMOs that have died. So, not the best thing, because I don't actually experience those for myself, because I don't have time for that. But classic WoW, I think that kind of fits the niche of being a harder game and a landscape where all games are pretty easy, in comparison to the old ones. Because if you ever go back and try to play some of those old platformers and stuff, they're kind of difficult. Much more difficult than, beating the main storyline on, like, any brand new AAA game that isn't trying to sell itself as a Dark Souls-like. So, it kind of succeeds in that notion, where the leveling experience is tough, because you have to fight one mob at a time. And the endgame content isn't as difficult, though. But, people don't want, for the most part, classic for the endgame content. Endgame content in classic WoW isn't as difficult as endgame content in BFA. So I think there's going to be a little bit of a difference there once a lot of people hit that. But that's, I think, a different discussion. Currently, I'm more about, like, the leveling process. A main feature of Vanilla WoW, which isn't a main feature of current WoW, BFA. Anyways, all that to say, actually, I kind of lost my train of thought. I think I was talking about why it's difficult and why that's fun. I think it's more of a subjective thing, but there is, some universal psychological things there that really do, make the questing in Classic WoW more fun when compared to BFA. Because in Classic WoW, with how difficult everything is, getting upgrades to your power feels better. Like, you can go around for, a couple of hours killing stuff, and if it takes you 30 seconds to kill a single mob, and then you get, a weapon upgrade, that gives you like +1 agility and has, actual appropriate damage for your level, and then you go out and you kill something in 20 seconds instead, that is a huge noticeable increase in damage. Even though it still takes a while, you spend so long, so weak, that when you get something that actually increases your power, even if only by a little bit, it just feels more noticeable, and it feels more valuable. And then you have that new weapon, and you carry it around for like the next 5 levels, and then you go back to taking 30 seconds to kill everything, and then you find a new piece of equipment, and it will slow, your kill time by like a second, and then all those seconds add up to where you're back down to, 20 seconds killing a mob again, and then you feel strong, or maybe you'll get a new talent row, and then you'll kill stuff in 15 seconds, and you're like, whoa, this is super fast. And then as you level up, the world catches up to you, and you're back to killing stuff like in 25 seconds. Whereas, when you're running around in BFA, for example, if I can't kill something immediately, I get mad. It's like, I don't want to kill these, no-name mobs. If it's an elite mob, I can understand why it takes a while. But if it's a non-elite mob, and I'm in full raid gear, like 415 item level, and I can't kill stuff immediately in the open world, I feel a little cheesed off. It's like, you should die instantly. I shouldn't have to attack you like 5 times to kill you. But in Classic WoW, if something dies in 20 seconds, I think that is a very appropriate amount of time for one thing to die. Which is not the case. It's almost like a different game. Because it's so different. So fundamentally different. I explained this in the video I made about, Vanilla WoW leveling. Like, it's basically a completely different game. It's so different. Because of all of the changes that have been made to it over the years. To make leveling faster. Because people absolutely complained all the time, even back then. In Vanilla WoW, people complained as much as they do now. Well, I wouldn't say as much. There's... internet culture is just more loud. There's more places to complain than there was back then. People are more used to doing it as well. But even then, back then, by 2004 standards, people still complained about everything. Because there was still lots of problems with the game, and they didn't really fix all of them until late Wrath of the Lich King. People, we have all of these conveniences in the game today that people, decry as being too easy or too casual friendly. But the reason Blizzard put those in the game is because people asked for them. People want the game to be easier. They want all these conveniences. And in fact, I recently made a video talking about 10 of the conveniences they've made to the game that are just straight up better. And, there's not too many of them. It was kind of hard to find 10 things that people unilaterally would be like, yeah, those are just better. The game is literally better because those things are in the game now. But all of those inconveniences, when compared to modern WoW, it almost seems like a novelty. You have to work within those constraints. And if you are able to work within those constraints and do fun, it's fun. I love to do little stupid challenges. Things where people will make comments like, oh, so you've totally run out of ideas. Or, oh, the game is so boring if you have to do this. Like the Iron Man challenges, where you level up without gear, without anything with stats on it, basically. And no talent points, and you try to hit max level without dying. I had a lot of fun doing those. And people would always say, wow, the game is so boring that you have to play within these constraints. And it's that's not really true, because I also had fun, doing other things in the game that weren't the Iron Man challenge. It's also fun to play, the same thing within different constraints. And Classic WoW is kind of like that. It's like, WoW, but with a whole bunch of limitations in it. And trying to do the best within those limitations is fun in of itself, with nothing to do with, trying to relive nostalgia. And I guess I have kind of skipped over nostalgia a little bit. Why do people keep saying it's going to be just nostalgia? Well, the arguments for that are, the only people excited for Classic WoW are the ones who played it 15 years ago and just want to relive their childhood. And I think that is absolutely true for some people. I don't think that's anywhere near enough people, to justify the amount of hype that Classic WoW is having. Do you really think there's that many people who specifically played the game 15 years ago at a point where they could remember it and are currently still waiting to play the game today 15 years later? I think there's going to be a lot of people who just straight up don't play MMOs at all anymore who played back then. I think the amount of people who did play it back then and want to play it now is a pretty small audience. Not worth building a game for. Which is why I can kind of understand why Blizzard spent so long, saying you don't actually want this because the target audience is too small. It'd be way too much effort to put in for a small target audience. And it turns out there's more to that target audience than just that. There's people who want to play it to try it out for themselves. There's people who just like the harder constraints that Classic WoW puts on the same gameplay. And it turns out to be a big audience. And that's why, it was worth them doing it, because they found out how, successful some of these illegal servers were. People would more than happy pay, to have a Blizz-like server made by Blizzard without all of the shenanigans that go on with those illegal servers. Even though, different topic, but a lot of people who play those servers just want to play WoW without spending money. But there's also a lot of people who just want to play the old versions of WoW. Kind of a muddied argument. I used to think those kinds of servers were only for people who just wanted to play an old version of the game. And then once I got more into that community and looked into it, I found out, there's a large percentage of those people who play just because they want to play WoW for free. But that's a topic for neither here nor there. The fact is, there is also a large amount of people who play those servers because they just want to play the older versions of WoW. For one reason or another. And, the Classic WoW thing finally gives them a legal way to do it. One in which they don't have to worry about their characters being wiped. And that's great. I'm looking forward to it too. But I wasn't really looking forward to it too much before I tried it for myself. Before then, I thought, that's great. I'll have a way to get, footage of things in game. And that was the only thing I thought about with Classic WoW. I didn't really care about the gameplay. I just thought, it's neat. It's going to be great to play it for footage and video ideas. And that was about it. And then when I tried it for myself, I was like, this is legitimately fun. And I'm looking forward to play it, literally just to play it. The videos and stuff, that's just going to be a nice plus, and it's great. I'm glad it's coming out. And I think that kind of long-winded thing explains this argument. And now on to the questions for the comment response video next week. So, what do you guys think? Is Classic WoW hype just nostalgia bait? Is the only reason people are excited about it because they want to relive their childhood? Which I think is definitely true for some people, but I think that audience is way too small to matter. And I don't think all of the negative criticism about how it's just nostalgia is really justified for how small that target audience is. But I mean, I don't know. What do you think? I think I'm 100% right, though. But, I always get some really good viewpoints on these kinds of things. This question is basically just about, the nostalgia argument. Not really about if Classic WoW will do well, if people will enjoy it. It's purely, the nostalgia thing, because I think people will enjoy it. I think it will do well. Whether it will be a success, that's another story, though. Dark Souls is a success. But will Classic WoW be, a big success? maybe all of the signs are pointing to a big success, but you never really know until it happens. It could just be a case of huge hype for a huge flop. We'll see. So, until the next video. Even though my channel is very nostalgia bait, like I make a lot of my videos because I know it'll pull on the nostalgia strings of people. But I myself don't really like it. It's I think it can be toxic living in the past when there's so many new things you can try instead of trying to relive something that's gone. It was great back then, but you never know. You could waste your time now trying to hope for something that's already passed. What if you were, in those golden ages, nostalgic about something else? You would have wasted that present being nostalgic about a past time instead of enjoying that present. And that's how I feel about the current present. You shouldn't constantly dwell on the past and just live in the moment. What's happening now will be your nostalgia 10 years from now. So, don't waste this time being nostalgic about something that happened 10 years ago.